Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co host, Miosha. And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight, season 17, episode 8. But before
Hmm.
we get into that, guys, we are doing a Vlogmas. We're putting out a video every day up until Christmas. So if you haven't been like catching up with that, please go ahead
Hmm.
and do that. We have a lot of videos that we've put out. It's almost a week so far. So for those who've been watching, we hope you've been enjoying that. And then we're actually, I think, like 3 people away from 2,000 subscribers, which is very, very huge for us. So if
Hmm.
you've been watching our videos and you like them, but you forgot to subscribe, we forgive you. Just go ahead and do it real quick so we can hit
I
2,000.
know. Go ahead and commit and tell a friend too.
Exactly. All right. So now that the housekeeping is out of the way, let's get into the episode. Um, let's start with Claire and Cameron because I think I have not so much on them.
No, it's still pretty uneventful. I think on the honeymoon, we thought this would be a pretty problematic couple, but I think things are just status quo. They're moving in. The energy seems fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
they
did
go.
note at the beginning because Claire said something about his shorts. I'm like, can we go one episode without you commenting on this man's clothes? Please. Just one. Just
I
one.
don't I don't think she can help it.
Yeah, I think she might just be like a critical person. She might be a little bit of a complainer. Maybe that's just like her.
Mm.
I definitely don't think she means anything by it. I think she's largely unaware of it, but it's just something that I get. So Cameron talked about he's lived with a partner before,
He
but
said he's not worried.
not just with a partner. It seems like he moved in with his partner's whole family. Like, is,
Girl,
is that what I'm getting? So,
we didn't get too many details other than there was a partner and the partner's family. Now, what the configuration was, the why, that's a very interesting setup. I've heard of married couples who are like in a transitional period doing that.
yeah,
I don't hear too much about dating
basic
couples
couples.
living with extended family. He said that he's not worried. She said that she is.
And I think she should be like, I would be concerned, not that it's anything about him, but I think for your first time and then for it being in this experiment, that would be scary to me.
Yeah, I think she's well within her right to be nervous. Yeah, I also think too, like being on a honeymoon is different than like being at home.
Someone on Twitter said every time they talk, it feels like a business meeting. And so I think a lot of what they're
Mm.
trying to do is get on the same page in advance so that they don't experience certain things. But I think for them, you really just have to live and those circumstances will come and then you figure out how to sort it out. But yeah, so a lot of times they're just having these business meetings and it feels like a lot of, well, in theory, this is how I am and this is how I would react, but it's no lived experience. Like it's all theory and no practice, essentially.
Yeah, there was something that they were talking about in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was she said something like, if I'm doing something or you're doing something, I'm gonna let you know, I'm gonna call it out. And his stance was, oh well, maybe I don't have to call it out immediately. Like I'll let
Yeah.
it bubble up or get to a certain point. And so it feels like they're pretty opposite on a lot of things. And
Yes.
she was like, no, like, I don't think you should let it bubble up. I think you need to tell me. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that conversation, I wrote, I wonder, I don't want to say that Claire is controlling, but something about her, maybe it's the criticalness that
Mm-hmm.
you said. I don't know, something about it. I don't know. It's like, yeah, y'all are gonna be different. He's not. I see pros and cons to both
Yeah. And
in that scenario where like, oh, you don't want to be nagging people, but at
she's
the
a
same
nagger.
time, you also don't want to wait until you're about to explode. And so on that, I'm like, well, no, he doesn't have to be exactly like you in
Yeah.
that area.
But if she's like that, I could understand her being like, I would prefer that you bring it up sooner rather than like something happens and now I'm hearing about things that I've been doing wrong for the last 4 weeks. That would irk me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can
Finding the
see
right balance,
balance.
I get, but I don't
Yeah.
know. They're so early on. I'm like, why? Just live together.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think they just need to like live some things out. And as you live, make adjustments, you know? But I
Hmm.
guess because they're strangers, they don't know that the other person would be willing to make adjustments. So perhaps it's all like, okay, let's figure out what type of people we are so that if we
Hmm.
do need to make adjustments, I know that I can count on you to do that. I get some of the controlling, like, I think she seems very in control of her life and her world. And
Hmm.
for someone like that, this type of experiment takes
That's
away all of your control in this area. And so
yeah.
I think that's why she's coming off as controlling, because she probably really is in control in her own life, but
Hmm.
this ain't the process to be in control at
Yeah, this is, I think, pushing her very far
all.
outside of her comfort zone versus for him, he's like, well, this is this is
Yeah.
kind of what comes with it. You marry a
Yeah.
stranger at first sight.
I felt like their apartment tours were the most enjoyable, surprisingly,
Hmm.
because they're not necessarily the most enjoyable couple so far, but
Hmm.
their apartment tours I think were the most lighthearted and enjoyable, and you got to see personalities and stuff like that. I,
Hmm.
I also liked listening to Cameron's story about religion, but as soon as he said that, I'm like, it's so interesting that on this season, none of the couples are the same religion. Like,
Mm-mm.
not one of and religion is a pretty big thing for a lot of people. So I think it's rare, maybe, that you find couples making it through that. And not like completely rare because I've seen it happen, but
Hmm.
it's not the most common thing. And so I'm concerned that all the couples, we haven't heard Lauren and Orion talk about their
Mm-mm.
religion.
They didn't even make it to that.
But yeah, I think it's kind of odd that all the couples don't share religion. So it's like we maybe automatically can tell that they're not all going to make it just based on that. That's my feeling, but
And at least with Claire and Cameron, they're like, oh well, you'll do you, I'll do me. Eh,
I'm not convinced
I
about
don't
that.
know. I wanted to hear, what did you get kicked out of the church for?
Right. What did you speak out on? Like, I was hoping he would like give
Was
me more. Cameron, I
we
usually don't want to hear you talk, but please say more.
I mean, were you spilling sword secrets? Like, were you telling on somebody? Where I mean, I would think they wouldn't kick you out for just asking too many questions as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, but
They need a follow-up.
it was a Catholic church, so I wonder, like, how strict they might have been, his particular
Mhm.
church. Who knows? But yeah, that is a very young age. I even when they were talking to Dr. Pepper and he was saying like he
Mhm.
has strong feelings about not raising kids in the church, with Claire being someone who has like come back to her faith, I don't know that I see them lasting long term. Like, I think as a friend or a family
Mhm.
member, you can say, oh, yeah, well, I disagree on your point about raising kids in the church. And you guys can live your lives happily ever after. But as a partner, sharing those kids, there might be some differences of opinion.
Yeah, it sounds like he wants to live in the gray area, and Claire is like, no, there are some things that are black and white.
Yeah. So if this is supposed to be for life, I think they handled it well for it being the first time they discussed it, but I question the longevity of the relationship with that being an issue.
I agree. And I don't know, maybe if you're in a relationship in the comments where you and your partner have navigated,
Hmm.
kids and raising them, like how drop a line, like how does that work?
Yeah.
I'm curious because it would seem like it would come up a lot if one parent is going to church or mass and
Hmm.
they're all in, and then they're wanting to bring the kids or not. And then if the children go talk to the other parent about it and you're saying the complete opposite,
Yeah,
how do you navigate that? Yeah.
absolutely. And I've seen it work, but I've also seen it more like not work more. So I know it
Mm.
exists and I know that people have like beautiful, thriving families with it. Um, yeah, it's just interesting.
Mm.
That's all I had on them though.
Yeah, Claire says she's gonna try and be more affectionate. We shall see.
They are both trying. From this episode, it seems like they are both trying.
One last thing. So I wrote down that I get a bit of troll energy
From Cameron.
from Cameron. Do you get
Absolutely.
that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And with her personality, I think she's playing nice. I
Mhm.
think she's trying,
Yeah.
but I can see her getting worn out from that. Because he said something
He's
like,
real
"Oh, well,
slick with it.
yeah." He's like, "Oh, well, if you would have just asked." She's like, "No, I did ask you about your hobbies." It's like he's just trying to give her a
Oh,
hard time, and I don't
yeah.
understand why.
And you don't know her like that yet.
Is that your way of flirting and thinking that's going to make her more affectionate physically towards you? I wrote down, "I'm picking up on troll energy," and I think he should calm it down a bit.
A little bit. Because she seems
Yeah.
playful, but not troll playful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Becca and Austin, I actually think I have less on them than Claire and Cameron. I
Yeah,
lied
it's a snooze fest.
with them. Yeah.
I what I will say though is this episode kind of confirmed what I have been feeling the last few. As far as I don't think he's that into her. And he's
Okay.
trying to
What was the
navigate.
confirmation?
Oh, let's see. After decision day, he says,
After
you know,
decision day.
you could just go to your place.
Oh,
I'll
after
go to
moving.
mine. Yeah. Uh
Oh, okay. Sorry. I see what you're saying. I'm like, we don't have decision day yet.
I'm sorry. I'm quoting him. After decision day, until our leases are up, you could go to yours, I'll go to mine, then we'll reconvene. And she's just like, well, I'm month to month, baby. Oh,
It,
well, you're not going to want to move in here with me and my roommate. It was like he was just grasping for straws. Just,
yeah. I found that funny. I'm like, he didn't consider that he could move. Like, it was just like he was
no, he
missing
didn't.
her.
Because he's not all in. And not that I'd expect him to be all in after just
All
one
in.
week, but I think it just confirms for me like he's trying to navigate how do I get out of it? Because I think there may be something there, but I don't know if he's fully ready to commit
Hmm.
and talk about serious things like that.
Okay. Yeah, he's giving unserious and not the fun kind. Um, or not the funny kind.
Mm-mm.
So I Becca just seems very agreeable. And that's usually an
Mm.
amazing quality. But this episode, I just felt like, so she's just okay with everything. Like when he said he does laundry once a month and she does it once a week. First of all, if he's saying that he does laundry once a month, I am willing to bet my last dollar he does it even less than that. So, but yeah, she was just like, oh, I'm okay
Oh,
with it.
okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
The
Same.
only
All right. Cool. Like,
the only pass I would give him, but he lives in a house. So I've heard of people who live in apartments where they have to do communal laundry, where
yeah.
they'll go through all of their clean stuff. Okay, once
Mhm.
they're getting low, then they'll take it all downstairs just because it's a hassle. So I've heard
Yeah.
of that. Like, oh, I only do it once a month, but I go through most of my towels. I go through most of my sheets.
He
I
said he
haven't.
doesn't even change his towels much, right? Or was it the towels that
Yeah,
was
he's
like,
like, oh, when I feel like I need it.
yeah, I'm like, your towel
Austin, I'm trying for you, but
is it's not quite giving Mitch because his bathroom was clean.
oh yeah,
But you
no.
remember Mitch? Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
lot.
that was a lot. Yeah. I don't
Uh,
yeah, I don't know. And he lives in a house, so
so they had a conversation with Pastor Cal. Any huge takeaways from that for you? I think the one I have is the religion thing where she's like, I've never met a Christian who's not trying to convince me that I need to be. And Austin, just let her know that that's not the type of person he is and he's not trying to do that. But I could also see it being because even sometimes, even if you're not like fully active in your own faith,
you could get more.
you could get more, but you could also want like a partner who's the same faith. who's not as active, because if you do decide to lean more into it, okay, you
Mhm.
have that support. So that's the vibe that Austin is giving me. I don't think he's as okay with it as he is putting out there.
Mm-mm. And I think for her, her concern is that if he decides to get more in his faith,
Yeah.
he's going to drag her, not literally, along or try to
Or
push
condemn
her,
her.
yeah, or condemn her
Mhm.
for not being as involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the kid thing too. Even Pastor Kyle was looking like, mm,
Yeah.
if even the way she said it, like, oh, I've always been okay with not having my own biological kids.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, that's an interesting way to
Of
say it. Like most people would be like, oh, I never was tied to the idea of like having to have kids.
But
Mm,
Becca isn't most people. Again, there's
yeah.
her reality has probably forced her to think about those things maybe sooner than other people
Right.
might have. And so it just always seems like I had to come to this conclusion based on all the things
Mm.
that are going on with my body. And so biologically, I don't know what's going to happen, and I need to be okay with whatever happens.
Yeah. And I wonder what are his thoughts on that? Because I think he's always envisioned himself having a traditional family with two kids and
Biological kids.
mm-hmm.
Hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
Austin needs to talk more. Like, don't
He just
drag
goes
his
along with whatever she says, like, oh, okay. Yeah,
baby.
yeah. She
Freaking,
leads the conversation a lot, and he's just co-signing it, but not initiating a whole lot.
especially the serious ones. So yeah, I'm
Yeah, all
confused.
he talking about what? Nintendo 64 and, "Oh, we'll use yours." I don't know. And then I wanted to talk about one other thing, as
Okay.
far as them consummating the marriage or not. So he's always said, "Oh, I move slow, I move slow." Do you think that she's just letting him take the lead in that? Or
I don't
what do you think is going on with that?
I don't think so. I haven't gotten the sense that she's just letting him take the lead. I think she's an outspoken enough person where she might say when she's interested in that. So
Mm,
maybe she's also just taking things slow.
okay.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that sense yet, but I know you're probably gonna be like, that's another thing that confirmed he's just not that into her.
No, actually, the sex thing isn't it. It was just the moving in.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, y'all. My phone just dropped. It's a live video. But no, actually, I wouldn't say the sex thing. I just think the moving in part, the way he was dancing around it and the
Mhm.
reasons he was giving,
Hmm.
it would have been better off him just saying, oh, we still have a good ways to go in the process. And I would feel more comfortable, talking about the living arrangements as we get a little bit closer. So just
Yeah.
communicate more, not come up with these random excuses that don't make no sense.
He didn't even consider moving in. Like he was like, yeah, the option would be you moving here. Anyway, that's all I have on them though.
Yeah,
Oh, wait,
that's
sorry.
oh,
I
go ahead.
like that he like moved in and comforted her when she was crying while they were talking to Pastor Cal.
Mhm.
I thought that was very sweet. So he seems very kind to her.
When you said that she was being very agreeable, do you get desperate from her? Or do you get that she's just so into him, or is it just
I don't get
why
desperate.
is she being so agreeable in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't get desperate from her. I think she just met a stranger who she married, and she's taking things with stride. So
Mm,
she's not trying to ruffle feathers. She's trying to learn, okay, when can I say what I want to say? How can I express with this person? I think she's just trying to learn him. And also, she might just be a person who is more go with the flow on certain
mhm.
things. So it's like, if it's not a big issue, I'm not going to press it. I'll be cool with it. Like, okay, if he doesn't wash his towels all the time, if I'm a person who does laundry once a week, maybe that's something I can take over. Like, I think she's approaching this process in that way. Like, if it's not something that is a huge issue to me, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I think she's being agreeable on things that are not as serious, but
Mhm.
because she's talked about, hey, we should talk about more serious stuff. Let's talk
Yes.
about religion, kids, you know, all these other things that I think she may not be as agreeable on. He just isn't is interested in talking about them or bringing them up. So,
Yeah. And I think I kind of appreciate that about her. Like, if it's a big deal, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to bring it up as many times as I need to feel comfortable. I'm going to let you know, hey, this needs to
mhm.
be on your radar. If it's not an important thing, I'll just be okay with it. So, yeah, I don't get desperate at this time.
Okay. All
All
right. That's
right.
all I have.
You know what? Let's do Lauren and Orion first, and then
Okay.
we'll end with Emily and Brendan. I forgot
Mhm.
the Okay.
Uh,
All righty. So
mm,
they leave Cancun.
yeah. They
Okay.
finally
We made it off the honeymoon. Yeah. We're
Ooh,
finally out of Cancun.
8 weeks in.
No, it's not Cancun. There is somewhere else. I can't
Puerto
remember.
Vallarta. Is
I
that
don't
it?
know. Maybe.
Mm, mm.
Anyway, they were somewhere
We
there.
not there. We not on
Right.
nobody's beach.
If I was there, I would know the name of it. But yeah, so they made it back home. Of course, the energy was very awkward. When they walked back out to the group and Claire was like putting two and two together, she's like, yeah, Lauren's not wearing her ring. Cameron is
Mhm,
still, I mean, Orion is still wearing his. I'm like, sis was putting two and two together. Like, what's going on here?
mhm.
And I would have been just like her, like, what's happening with in their camp?
And even in that scene where Lauren says, "Oh, we have irreconcilable differences," and he's like, "Oh," he basically says the same thing she says, but slightly in a different way. Why?
I think Orion cares a lot, not saying that he shouldn't, cares a lot
Mhm.
about how he presents himself in
Oh,
front of
really?
others,
Oh, okay.
in front of the group and in front of the experts. That's what I'm picking up on. Just the way that he addresses the experts. And I'm like, nah, that's not the
And the way
energy.
he lies. Mhm.
The way he lies and the way that he downplays his part and the way that he like magnifies her parts.
Mhm.
And so I think he just really mm.
You know what it
Anyway.
reminds me of? Like siblings. Like when you're in trouble and you're in front of your parents, "Oh no, she did da da da, he did da da da."
Mhm.
And then when you're together, it's like, you on the same level as they are. That's
Right.
that's the vibe here.
You were yelling just as loud as I was.
You were
You hit
trolling
me
too.
too. Matter of fact, you started it. So yeah, like just like that. Okay,
Mhm.
so Lauren said, I don't think Orion has been able to afford me the same grace. And she said, I can't keep up with the arguments. It's a lot of ups, it's a lot of downs. My good sis was exhausted and rightfully so.
We all are too watching it. And that's
Because
why go ahead.
what sorry.
Mm-mm, you're fine.
When they got on the plane, and then the next thing you see is them coming in with the pizza boxes and things seem okay. And she's like, he asked for a full reset.
On the plane.
Why? He's flip flopping so much. Like he's like a fish out of water. You know how they be like flip flopping because they're in a new environment. That's him.
And she's I don't want to say I don't know if I could say she's better than me, but girl, how do you how do
Yeah,
you just bounce back and be like, okay?
but I don't think she bounced back because remember when he
Mm.
left with his box of pizza and she was like in there by herself and said something like, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I
but even
think,
her saying we'll see after you asked for a divorce and said you couldn't forgive.
yeah,
Mm.
I, I'm not here for the change of heart and the flip flopping. I think that is a huge sign of immaturity, and he continues to do it. And then, of course, he flipped again.
It- My theory is all this flip-flopping
Mhm.
is it's like he's in the moment with her, things bubble up for him, and he's like, "Oh, I can't do it." But then like when he has time, I guess to himself or with his own thoughts, I think he's thinking about, well, it would be nice to still be a part of this process. So I'm back in. I
Interesting.
think but then he's back around her and he's like, nah, I can't do it. And then it's like, oh no, but maybe. I think he
Hmm.
wanted to do a thing where they could fake through the rest of the process or struggle through it. But then parts of him realized, like, well, that may require more effort of me than what I'm actually willing to put in. It's something I think there was something there to where he still wanted to be a part where he's like, oh, well, maybe let's just give it some time and da da da.
Girl, I was like, is anybody surprised that Orion is taking space again?
Because
He's
when
like,
he has his own space, he's like, oh, I can do this. I'm still a part of the process and can hang out and whatever. And
if
then
I
when
hear
he's
him
back
say
in it,
take
he can't.
space one more time, like how much space can you take at some bruh, it's a marriage. At some point, you have to know that you have to be in here with the person.
But even when so he tells her on the plane, I want a full reset.
Hmm.
But he still said that first night he needed space. So it's like, no, you don't want a full reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me was contradictory because I was kind of surprised. I'm like, well, is she gonna stay at the apartment? Is he not gonna stay at the apartment? I thought you said you wanted a full reset.
And I don't think either one of them did, but I wish she would have just said absolutely not and packed up her stuff because at that point he was being a man child, I thought. So,
And by the way, he went home, I'm assuming to his mom's house.
why was that important?
Because it was. The man who don't like being told what to do by
She said, and
women.
by the way, he ain't even got his own place.
The man who don't like being told what to do by women, by the way. That's why it's important.
I'll bring that back when we get to Dr. Pia, because
Okay.
all right. But so he sends her a text while she was over there doing her curls, which looked cute, by the way.
Her hair's looked cute the whole time.
Yeah, it has looked really cute. So
Mhm.
she took her braids out, and he says he doesn't want to continue the marriage, but he wants to continue the process. And
Oh,
she was like, I'm confused because isn't the process the marriage? Yes,
okay, Alyssa 2.0.
right. Because I've worked so hard to be here and I'm a good person. That's exactly what he's giving.
He thought she would be okay with, okay, you take this room, I take
Mhm.
this room, we come together, we film, we can hang out with our friends.
And I'm glad that she's like on some don't waste my time energy. Honestly, he's wasted enough of it, in my opinion. But I understand, like, after all the time that you spent in this process, you don't want to be the person who's like, I didn't even give it a try. So maybe that's the motivating factor for her. But yeah, I would have been out more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
So Doc,
shocked he even put that in a text.
right, he should have said it when the cameras weren't there or something. So like there wasn't evidence of it. Not that we needed it, because I would have believed her anyway,
Yeah.
the way he's been
Right.
acting. Okay, so they met with Dr. Pia. This tripped me out because he started out by saying, yeah, because she asked, oh, when was the last time you guys have talked? Have you guys tried to see each other? And he's like, yeah, we tried to meet up, but it just didn't work. No, Ryan, why didn't it work? And I love that because when he tries to give half truths, I love when people call him out on his stuff.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
She said, no, I sent him the days and times I was available and heard nothing back. So there wasn't any effort. We did not try. He did
And
not
Dr. Pia is like, and he always has this confused, like bewildered look when Lauren calls him out.
try.
Like the
Yeah,
audacity of her to tell the truth about what actually happened. And what's your rebuttal? Nothing.
right. I was concerned that they sent Dr. Pia to do the conversation and not Pastor Cal because I do think he has some issues with female authority figures that he needs to work through. And so I was like, cool, let's see how this goes.
hmm
He
And
responded. Mhm.
wasn't it Pastor Kyle on their honeymoon who
Yes.
did their sit down? So
Well, it
yeah,
was
he should
both
have.
of them because
Oh
Dr. Pia talked
yeah,
about the him
emotional
calling her
bank.
a
Yeah.
him trying to say she was or something. Like it was Dr. Pia who
Mhm.
had that
Oh yeah.
conversation, and then Pastor Cal had the divorce conversation. You y'all were on the honeymoon for how many days and had to seek out two of the experts?
I
It's
will say this is the most I feel like they've been present since I started back watching.
That's so true. We have seen a lot of the experts, and maybe it's because they have a third person now. Because remember, before it was just them and Pastor Cal. Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cow, and they had the people come in here and there. So
Mhm.
I like to see the experts, but I think they have their jobs cut out for them, and I don't see the
Oh,
success of many of these marriages. Um,
yeah.
okay, so he said, I thought that the time away would give us both time to heal. And so for this, I'm like,
Mm.
she doesn't need time to heal. Like she didn't ask for that. And if you're in a relationship, like you can't make those decisions unilaterally for both of you guys. So it's like you need the space, but don't try to prescribe what would work for her or what would work
Mhm.
for the unit. So I
Yeah.
I dislike that he does that often.
Yeah, and she's continuously said that she's in it and willing to try.
Mhm.
She's never once expressed that she's needed space. The
Yeah.
only thing I could think of was at the table where she just didn't want to talk about what he wanted to talk about at that moment.
Mhm.
But other than
Mhm.
that, she's like, "Oh, well, I'm still
Yeah,
in
in a
it."
relationship.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So Dr. Pia asks kind of pointedly, do you want the divorce? And she calls him out and says, you came in here with your mind made up. Like, let's be for real. And he's like, oh, when I get around her and, I see her reactions. I didn't like that. I think Orion knows the buzzwords to use
Mm.
because he's been using them on a person that doesn't deserve it. So he's like, yeah, her reaction. What about
As
her
if
reaction is so bad that it's like,
it's not, it's an excuse. Did she say, because and I didn't write down the context of this, but
mhm.
maybe you can help me remember. He said something about wanting to focus on the future, but in this conversation, he says the focusing on the future didn't have nothing to do with you
Us
or this
together.
process.
That could have been my future outside of her, not necessarily a future. If you are telling your wife that something future, what is she supposed to think? Oh, this the
It
we're not divorced yet. The future is just you.
Dr. Peel was just like, huh? Like the way her head
Listen,
went.
he chopped and screwed that thing. Like, oh yeah, no, like I said I was gonna do it, but I didn't say I was gonna do it immediately. Like it was one of those things where you qualify whatever statement you made at a previous time. Uh,
Yeah.
I I was here for Dr. Pia saying, Orion, how does control show up in your life? That question alone, how does control show up? And he never answered it.
Mm-mm.
He never answered it. He was like, "Oh no, 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 I'm not trying to control."
He is.
Differ. We beg to differ, and maybe it's exciting to him. Like, oh, I have a woman who I'm dangling the carrot now. Like I'm in
Mhm.
charge. I don't know. Maybe that
I'm the
excites him.
prize. She's desperate for me.
And she's not giving desperate. She's interested in the process, but I don't think she's giving desperate yet.
He
That's.
he wants to be the one calling the shots. "Oh, I'm in. No, I'm out. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm in. No, I'm out." I think even though he said that he wasn't looking to hurt her, I don't know about that.
Self-consciously, he's just enjoy. I think he's enjoying it a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
and
think so.
he's
And
her as well.
him giving her the hope like, "Oh, we have a chance,"
Mhm.
mentioning the word future, only to sit there and say, "Oh, I've lost all romantic interest in her."
Mr. Reset, mind you. Mr. Reset is the one who's lost all romantic interest.
The most frustrating part for me is that I wish that after she received the text about him wanting to be in the process, but
Mhm.
not be married to her, that she would have just said, "Today is my decision day."
You wish she would have ended it.
And
That's what
not to spite him, because he already said he wanted to end it. So
yeah.
what it seemed like was he said he wanted to end it.
Mhm.
Then we just had a whole conversation about why he wants to end it, the intricate details of ending it,
Mhm.
only for her to be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm still willing to try."
Mhm.
No, girl.
You know, at the end, when Dr. Pia was like, "Oh, like, what? Do you have anything to say to him?" And she's like, "No, that would be a waste." I wish it would have ended right there. But I understand,
Mhm.
like, Dr. Pia was making sure Lauren was good, so there was more conversation. And I appreciated that Lauren directed her comments to Dr. Pia and not to him directly, because at this point he's irrelevant. Um, he was on the after party.
Before you say the after party
Okay.
info, because I don't watch it, so I'm not sure what you're gonna say.
Okay.
But I still stand by the fact I don't think he was ever fully interested in her in a romantic way.
Okay. Fair.
Okay.
So on on the after party, it was Orion, Emily, and then they
Mhm.
had a director at Essence magazine or something like that.
Mm.
Now, I will say, because Orion has been on this show several times, on the after party several times, I at least appreciate that he shows up to the after party, because a certain somebody who we'll talk about next hasn't been showing up there and has
Mm.
refused the invitation, right? So he said something like, it wasn't intentional manipulation. So it was manipulation by that standard, just not intentional, which debatable. But I'll let you have that. And then when he was asked what he could have done differently, he said that he felt like he should have moved in, and that he shot himself in the foot because he thinks that the experts did a really great job matching him with Lauren, but he was so much in his head that he let that pass. And I was just like, thank you, God, that this man did not move in, because it would have just been more of the same thing.
I think what stopped him from moving in
Mhm.
was the fact that Lauren wouldn't put up this facade
With him,
because he basically said, "I still want to move in,
with the
just
process.
not be married. Like I want us to be on the same page that this is going to end in a divorce. I just want to be a part of the party."
Speaking of being married, okay, actually two more things. So
Mhm.
Keisha asked if he and Lauren have talked since. And apparently Lauren has asked that he doesn't reach out to her, which I fully support. He said that he, I guess, had reached out to maybe Claire to see, oh, how she's doing, and Claire didn't pay him dust. He was like, yeah, there wasn't really a response to that, which I appreciate. Listen, if I'm done with somebody, my
We all
homegirls are
done.
too. We all done with it. We all done with it. Claire understands the assignment. And I love
Mhm.
that. And then, so this is the last thing from the after party. Well, for this couple,
Mhm.
Keisha asked if he felt like, now that the process is over, if he's ready to be married. And he said no. I'm like, okay, what was this no before you married Lauren? But he said he learned not to hold a grudge for more than an hour, which you don't have to put a time frame on it. But obviously, he held that grudge. He held that grudge like his life depended on it. And then he said the next thing that he learned was to be clear about what you say, which I don't know what that means, but I just wanted to report what the after party was giving. He again,
Mhm.
he presents like he's presenting on the after party as someone who is accountable. And I'm not,
As he would in front of the experts, and
yes,
it
I'm
still
not
feels
convinced.
like there's some manipulation there.
Exactly. And I get it. Like, when you're a minority, you have to the image is very important. So on one hand, I'm like, I get that. He does
Mhm.
not want to leave in. We're all like, oh, he's a complete jerk, which we still do think that. But like, he's trying to clean it up a little bit, but I'm just not fully convinced.
No, he's flip-flopped way too much. Okay, you said that today. What about 2 weeks from now? And you know how I feel about the after party. A lot of this is just playing cleanup, but
Yeah, we'll see what the reunion is giving. I don't know. The last couple reunions haven't been given much. Ever since they didn't hold Nurse Morgan accountable, I'm like, I don't know about this reunion. But I wish Keisha Napoleon would be the one who
oh yeah, she should be
hosts
doing the
the
reunion
reunion. And
because
she'll
she's involved every episode.
Mhm.
Mm,
Anyways.
okay.
All right. So the hot mess that is Emily and Brennan.
And to start before you lead us in,
Okay.
Emily, I'm sorry. We thought you were going to be the problem child. And
Emily,
so
we
far,
apologize.
we apologize. This is my sorry
Sorry
for.
for
Seriously, we thought it was gonna be you, but I feel so bad for you
We knew it
in
would be him a
this.
little bit too, though, but we
We
thought she would,
did, but we
yeah,
thought she would be more.
a huge part of it. Yeah,
Yeah, a
yeah.
huge part of it, and we're wrong. We gonna take that L.
Listen, class act, Emily.
Whew.
um, okay, what are your thoughts on the episode?
All
Or the
right, so they get back home. They're moving into their new place. Mr. Brennan has no words. He has nothing. Just a mm-hmm. Oh.
and Emily shows up. If I can say one thing about her, she shows up like giving 100%. So she's walking around the apartment.
Oh,
She's
this is
making comments,
cute. This is
right?
nice. He's just
Interacting
like
with the cupboards and trying.
like a
And
normal person would in like a new room. Even when you go into a new hotel room or resort, you're
yeah,
like, "Oh, let's go check it out." And I get they had a long day traveling, but when I say he gave 0,
even at the
he gave
airport,
annoyed.
yeah, because I'm like, okay, I know you're tired, but okay, very
You ain't
weird.
that tired.
But
Mm-mm.
yeah, so that was the first sign, and it's Emily's first relationship, but she's not stupid, and I love that for her.
Mm-mm.
Like her intuition is intuitioning, is letting her know something's off, and so even when they walked into the apartment and she's walking around doing all this stuff and he's not responding, like you can see on her face, like she didn't let the what is it, let the bird sing or whatever, let
Mm-hmm.
the chopper sing, whatever they say. But I suck at these sayings. I don't even know why I be trying, but she didn't let the chopper sing and like call him out on it. But you could tell from her facial expressions and her body language, she peeped a difference.
Yeah. And so when they're sitting on the couch, Brennan says, "Oh, so you're gonna work here?" And then he says, "Oh," she says, "Yes." Then he's like, "Oh, well, I'll probably take my morning call here, have some breakfast, and then I'll head home to work." Something about before the traffic. She's looking like, huh?
You live here now. This is your address now.
And it was almost like once he gauged that she was going to be living and working in the apartment as a normal person who signed up for this process would, he's like, "Oh, bet I won't be here.
I
Wherever
think
you
he
gonna be, I'm not gonna be."
I think he had already planned not to be there. He was just like, "Oh, how do I break it to her?" And maybe he assumed, okay, well, she probably won't be trying to move in either. And when she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take my calls here. I'm gonna work from here," he's like, now I gotta find another way to do it." That's
Then
how
he said,
it happened.
then he says, "Oh, well, I'm gonna head home, tidy up, I just have a crazy work week ahead of me, and we'll reconvene in a few days."
In a few days. In a few days, Neosha. He's already finding excuses not to see her, not to be in the same space as
And
her all the time. And
and
because
this
they
is
go ahead.
this is where I feel like maybe her personality, maybe
Hmm.
her lack of relationship experience. Also, she's on television.
Hmm.
I think most people in that moment would have been like, "So why are you not staying here?" I don't think she ever asked him that night, "Why are you not staying here?"
And I think I don't know that Emily is a forward person.
Mm,
Like, I think because she's like a partier and seems very
mhm,
extroverted or whatever, like maybe we assume maybe because she does sales, we assume like, oh,
mhm.
she knows how to assert herself. Perhaps as an employee, she does, but again, maybe because she's new here. But in relationships, it seems like she doesn't know how to check people. Because remember how her friends were coming at her at the beginning, and we're like, "Those aren't your friends," but she wasn't
Mm-mm.
checking them. I don't think she's the
Mhm.
type of. I think she's a very nice person. Like I think that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Trying not to ruffle the feathers or cause
I think
tension.
it
So
is.
when she was just like, "Okay," I'm like, "Say something."
Yeah. Right. You just want to shake her, like, girl.
At least say, "Well, why? You're not gonna skirt around this. You a
Exactly.
man. Say how you feel. Be about it."
And he's like, yeah, we just need to pump the brakes and give it a couple of days without seeing your wife. Brennan, your wife?
And then
Come on.
what did he say? He's like, "Oh, it's been a long week. It's been we've been together 24/7. I just need to digest how I feel." Well, if you're easing back into the work week, that means you're going to be working all day. Your honeymoon, okay, you're together all day, you're lounging, you're relaxing, but you're back at home now. You're going to go to the gym, you're going to go grocery
Mhm.
shopping, you're going to
See
go to
friends.
work. You're probably only going to see each other in the evening, and then before you know it, it's time to go to sleep.
He's realized that he doesn't want to come home to her. But it's like, yeah, of course you've been around your wife 24/7 because that is now your wife. So
I wrote down, I'm like, "Brennan, this is not a dating experiment."
it's not.
What
This
did
ain't
you think
Tinder.
it was going to be? When you're married, you don't just get to be like, "All right, well, I'm gone for a few days because I need to recharge." You might say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go in the room and have some quiet time to
Mm-hmm.
myself to decompress,"
That's fine.
but you're not gonna be in a whole different space unless you're Sheryl Lee Ralph, who I just found out. So, is finally moving in with her husband
That
after
is
15
hilarious. Yeah,
years.
they've had a bi-coastal relationship this whole
Yeah.
time because he's a
Or Dr.
senator
Pepper
and she's an
too.
actress. Mm-hmm.
So those are the exceptions to the rule.
Oh God. Okay. So so when she showed up to view his apartment, he even seemed bored then. Like he wasn't for the first half of that, he wasn't even showing her around. He was just walking around and she would make observations. Oh, is this where? Oh, is this the room where? You know?
He was annoyed. I wrote down that he kept saying, mm,
But she
mm.
didn't do
Like
nothing.
all these annoying, like not grunts, but
Mhm.
just
Weird.
mm. Not
Weird
like, oh,
behavior.
okay, yeah, that's da 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 da. Or he
Yeah.
was giving nothing plus annoyed.
She doesn't deserve someone who doesn't reciprocate openness and flexibility because she's shown herself to be very open and very flexible. And
Mm-hmm.
so I hate that her first relationship is going down. Honestly, does this count as a relationship? Because they're not really relationshiping, they're just existing. But I hate that this is happening. You know what's interesting to me though? The
Mm.
fact that at the wedding, Brennan's friends were like, "Oh yeah, most of his relationships have ended because of communication. They just don't communicate the way that he does." Is this the way this man communicates with the and a here and there with the grunt? Like he doesn't even express himself. So his exes weren't the problem. The communication issues stem from him. He's the
That
issue.
and cutting his eyes, Mr. I'm only getting married once and da 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 da. Where is that same energy? Mm.
He left at the wedding. He
All
left
right.
at the wedding. Okay, so they meet with Pastor Cal, and this is where my idea of Emily as a person who's maybe not as assertive came in, because we hear her talking all this stuff in the confessional where she's like, "Yeah, I don't really think he's that into me. I don't think there's an attraction. He doesn't really seem like he needs to be here. And I am really excited that we're going to get a chance to talk to the experts so that we can really get to the bottom of it." Pastor Cal's first question: do you feel invested in the marriage? Emily, clearly is saying that she is. I don't remember what Brennan said, but Pastor Cal asked something like, if she feels he is.
Well, because before that,
Mm-hmm.
he asked about the moving in because he's
Oh,
like,
yes.
oh, this place clearly isn't being lived in. It looks staged. And instead of Brennan standing on business, she pipes up and says, "Oh, well, we didn't really feel a need to rush it. It was all this
We.
we." I said, "Where?" Because
Do you
it's,
speak
it's
French
been
now? Tu
Brennan.
parles français?
No, it's been Brennan. And I said, "You mean Brennan didn't want to move in?" So in that moment, I'm like, "No, Emily, take a step back. I could see you maybe not wanting to jump the gun to throw him under the bus or how he may perceive it.
Throw him under
But
there,
I would
girl.
have just been like, so
You not
you
gonna say nothing?
you got something to say? Because I ain't
Why
gonna
we
say
ain't
it."
moving in? No, I wrote that down too. I said, Emily, girl, speak up. I'm like, don't be worried about this man and how he's gonna feel because he's clearly not worried about you and how you feel at
Mm-mm.
all. Not even a little bit, you know? And so he's like, yeah, it just feels like something's off between. Yeah, that's what's off. You're
Yeah,
off.
he claims that he was just going with the flow on the honeymoon. Everything was fine at first, then he was going with the flow, and then he realized a little bit into the honeymoon that there just wasn't a romantic connection there.
It's been 7 days or 10, whatever. I don't know.
What was it ever there?
Exactly.
Or was it the alcohol?
It was all the tequila shots she had him taking.
And he's like, "Well, while I'm here."
Yeah. So she was saying, yeah, I feel uh Married at First Sight is a cautionary tale, and I love it, even though the couples aren't working, but I love it because I feel like if there are young girls who watch this show, and
Mhm.
even young men, like in the instance of Chris and Alyssa, but young people who watch this show, they can really see in 4K what a time waster looks like. It looks like Orion. So if you're with dating somebody, little Miss 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever, if you're dating someone and they're showing those types of like characteristics, you know to run because nothing comes out of it. So it's a cautionary tale to people in the dating world. But yeah, so she
Mhm.
says, I feel like there's something here and I just need more emotions to progress. And for me, I'm like, maybe this is where her lack of experience comes in because you shouldn't have to pull this out of anybody. If that man wants to be there, he will do the emotional work required. If he wants to progress, he'll progress.
That and I think there's a difference between, "Hey, I'm not into you physically," or whatever his reasoning is. He was just being rude.
Very
So
right.
I see those as two different things. It's like, okay, well, even with a friend, you'd show them around your new place and give a little bit more something. What did you say? Oh, I feel like I have the most amazing woman. I just don't know why it's not there.
And he doesn't feel that way. And he needs
But
to stop lying.
that doesn't explain your rudeness to her and being mean.
It's who he is as a person. It has nothing to do. And I like that she said that. Like, I know this has nothing to do with me, but it's hard to navigate something like this. What I didn't like, see, at least Kirsten was very upfront about her attraction to Shaq last season, right? A little too
Mhm.
upfront about it, but she was upfront about it. He has been lying through his teeth the entire time, saying like,
Mm,
"Oh, I find her attractive. I do this, I do that," but he did it, and now it's affecting his attitude towards her, and this poor
mhm.
girl is just she's about to get taken through the ringer just
Yeah.
like
He
Lauren, maybe. I don't know.
he says he doesn't even wanna touch her.
And here's the thing, because Pastor Cal was trying to get deep with someone who has no depth. He was really trying really hard. But apparently, Brennan, who didn't say two words to this person who he let enter his house and was taken around, Brennan, who his body language says, "Get her away from me." Brennan, who doesn't want to move in with her. This same Brennan was like, "Oh, I don't think it's nice to be honest about what I'm not attracted to." So you
Mhm.
think you think you're being nice by not saying that to her, but you don't see all the other not nice things that you've been doing. Do you care about being nice? No.
Even in the way that he responded to Pastor Cal, because I'm big on how you talk to people. It's not even just what you say, it's how you say it. So Pastor Cal asked, "Is there anything you don't like about her?" He's like, "Oh, well, we're not doing that." Excuse me? Is this how you talk to somebody who's old enough to be your father? See, no home training. All you had to say is, "Pastor Kyle, I don't feel the most comfortable expressing that. I feel like this is a private conversation I'd have with
Mhm.
Emily." That's all you had to say. "Oh, well, we're not gonna do that."
He has a
What?
control issue. He has to be in control. Remember when we talked about what happens when it comes to something where Emily, he wants Emily to change, but she's not willing to, and how we think that he might flip? We're starting to see it. And he's
Yeah,
like,
and
I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. Okay, well, she's not you. if this is something that she's requesting so that she can progress, just because she wants to know where you stand. I think that might be helpful to her. Like if you say, oh, you know, I don't like your lips, I don't like your nose. Okay, I can't, well, you can change that, but I'm not
Mhm.
willing to change that. So, okay, he just doesn't like how I look. That is what it is.
Yeah, ideally, I think no one wants to sit through a conversation where someone's talking about the nitty-gritty of why they're not attracted to you, but I think her and Pastor Cal were just trying to get a gauge of, is this a general statement of I don't feel spark, but I think she's beautiful, like her
Right.
body, da 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 da, or is it like your teeth or whatever? Which she has beautiful teeth. I'm just using this as an
Yeah.
example. What is there something specific? Obviously, she can't change that. You may not move on it either, so we can see if it's worth
Yeah.
continuing this process. And he just would not. He would not budge on it.
At all. So he's approaching this as, well, I'm still here. I'm still willing to try. Like, if this is how you plan on trying, pack it up. Go ahead and log off for me, please. Pack it right on up.
And And it left me thinking, because Pastor Goss said, "Oh, it seems like you went into this, and you set a goal of how you should feel or how it's going to be. And because it's not that, you're pulling out. There's this element of self sabotage." I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Completely disagree.
And while I don't want her to be dragged on national television, I do want to know, like, okay, well, what is it? What was Brendan expecting from this? Did he just not get what he expected physically?
Hmm.
Like, what is it? Is it a personality thing? Is it her breath things? Like what is it? And I don't necessarily know that we need to know that, but what I wouldn't appreciate is him dragging her along. Like he could tell her off camera. So
Hmm.
then she could make today her decision day. But I
Hmm.
feel like he's not going to do that from what we see in the previews.
Can we talk about the previews? Because it seems like he's bringing that same energy that he was bringing to Pastor Cal to her friends, and they're standing on business. They're standing 10 toes down. You're not talking to me like that. Excuse me. This is our friend.
Mm-mm.
Like they are not with the stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think next week is going to be a very interesting episode for Emily and Brennan, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. She
Anything
says
else
she's not
on
going to
here?
stop trying. Girl, you
Yeah,
might
because she
have
was
to.
saying like, oh, maybe there is some self sabotage, and I appreciate people who can give others the benefit of the doubt, but he's not worth it.
No, not with
He's
him
not worth
talking to
any
Pastor Cal
benefits.
like that. And then what we
Absolutely
see in the
right. Your
previews.
elders disrespectful. Is that
Mm,
you remember in Love and Basketball when Monica came back and she like said something sideways to her mom and Alfred
mhm,
Woodard was like, "Oh no, are they cussing mamas out in Spain?" And that's exactly how I felt about how he talked to Pastor Cal. Like,
mhm,
is this how we talk to our elders? It is not.
mm-mm.
But you guys let us know in the comments how you felt about this episode.
Yeah. And we have a
Especially
podcast episode tomorrow.
Yes, we have a podcast episode coming out tomorrow, and we have been putting out videos every day this week. So go ahead and watch
Yep.
them
Mhm.
and enjoy. And we will see you guys on the next video.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.